Hey, I'm Lorelei, registered dietitian nutritionist. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making a sort of pie. Hey, you know I'm recording.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So I can't play, is what you're saying?
Apparently you are able to, but it actually can also be picked up on this recording that I'm doing.
What you making?
I'm doing quiche, which is an egg pie, because I know you were...
in the kitchen, she's making pie, it's super delicious. Lola making pie, 'cause it's Pie-vember, Pie-vember.
Yes, Joe has proclaimed it Pie-vember. You may remember we made pie crust. We're actually going to do quiche with a different kind of crust.
Quiche?
Yeah.
Where's my pie?
It is a pie that you can still eat. Just because it's not dessert doesn't mean it's not pie.
It's not an ordinary person pie.
Oh, come on.
Well,
what's wrong with it?
there's nothing wrong with any sort of pie, but
Yes.
It wasn't the pie I had in mind for Pie-vember.
What kind of pie did you have in mind, Joe?
Some other sweet pie like pecan.
That's your favorite.
It's the most nutritious of the pies.
Well, it's probably the most calorie dense of the pies.
It's getting all your nutrients in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's got your nuttiness, it's got your sweetness, it's got a little bit of salty, savory, umalama-mama-mimis.
Lots of sugar and lots of fat. Lots of tastiness.
Really good, yes.
It does, it does. So we're gonna do a quiche today. Just a warning up front, this is not a vegan dish. So I apologize to you if you are vegan and like to watch my channel. Many of my recipes are vegan. This one is not. We're making it with eggs, and I'm also gonna put cheese in it. Quiche, however, is a nutritious meal sort of pie, so isn't that worth something?
I guess, but I feel like Pie-vember should focus on the sweeter pies, and if you're going to do a savory pie, it should be like a pot pie or something like that.
You have a lot of rules for this event that you sort of randomly invented.
I mean, most of these are oriented towards Joe getting enough pie in his life,
I feel like they're very Joe-focused
in November.
Well, anyways,
Cookie-sember's next.
you can make a quiche with a classic pie crust, which is the way that I often do it, but today I actually wanted to show you a different way you can make a crust using potatoes. So this actually is gluten-free, although it is not vegan, it is gluten-free because we're gonna use sliced potatoes to make the crust. We're gonna keep the skins on.
It's not even a regular crust?
No.
I'm so confused.
You're so disappointed. I'm just like swindling you on the pie deal.
Well, we'll see. I'll be your taste testers at home and let you know if this tastes good and is a suitable entrant for Pie-vember.
I see.
It's a real thing.
So I'm
Look it up.
kind of trying to cheat Pie-vember by putting in some whole food ingredients.
What you have against Pie-vember, I don't know, but fingers crossed. Potatoes crossed.
Yeah, right. We're gonna do a broccoli cheddar quiche. So this actually starts with some whole food ingredients. Potatoes, I've got eggs, which are a whole food, although it is not vegan, it is a whole food. I'm using broccoli, I'm using cheddar cheese, and then I'm also gonna use almond milk. You could use regular milk, but I have almond milk around because that's what I typically use for myself. Unsweetened almond milk. We're gonna slice these potatoes really thin, and we're gonna kind of layer them and make a pie crust out of the potatoes. You could do that with a knife. You could do it with a mandolin, which I don't have. I'm gonna try and see what happens if I do it with like this blade part of my box grater. Okay, but I think what I'm really gonna use is my food processor. So you have options for how you'd like to slice, but you want these really thin so that they're a little bit flexible because we're gonna try to actually fit them, mold them into the pie pan. So I'm gonna grab my food processor. Not shockingly, the crust has to happen first. We'll bake the crust and then we'll put all the other ingredients together and bake the whole thing. This will take a little bit of time when you make it, but you'll end up with multiple servings, so you can eat this over several days. So sometimes it's worth it if you get a dish that's going to create several meals. I'm going to try to just put these in with my slicer in my food processor. I might cut this in half. I don't even know what kind of potatoes these are, probably russet. I don't think it matters that much what kind you use. I think you can even use sweet potatoes if you like. Oh, these are very thin slices, like almost potato chip thin. So I think that's gonna work really nicely. Oh yeah, I used 2 potatoes. I don't know exactly how many you need. It's just gonna depend a little on the size of the potatoes, the size of your pie pan, how thick the slices end up. Ooh, look, they're nice and thin, and this way they're flexible, so they're gonna be able to layer into the pie pan really nicely. Before we put them in the pan, we're gonna put them in a bowl and mix them with a little olive oil and salt and pepper. In addition to this crust being gluten-free, it's also just going to be a lower fat crust than a traditional pastry crust. So when you make pastry crust, you use about a cup of flour and about a half a cup of butter, which is a fair amount of fat. We're going to use some olive oil with these potatoes, but it's not going to be near as much fat as you would use in a traditional pastry crust. Potatoes are full of potassium. They have some protein in them. They are actually a good, healthy food. My oven has just finished preheating. I heated it to about 400. So I was going to do these at about the same temperature that I would roast. So a little bit of olive oil, I would say, I don't know, a teaspoon to a tablespoon. You are going to need some to coat them all, but you don't need like a half a cup. You don't even need a quarter cup. Salt. Pepper. I'm gonna mix this with my hands and really just try to get all the slices coated. They're kind of sticking together, so you may have to work a little bit to kind of separate these slices. They're very thin, so they're gonna be layered like kind of over each other. It's not just gonna end up being a single layer. And this may be too much. As I'm looking at it, I'm like, ooh, this may be more potatoes than I need. So if it's too much, I'll let you know. If it's too much, I'll just have to, I don't know, make potato chips or something like that, unfortunately. This is my pie pan. I may actually put a little bit of oil in here as well because I really don't want it to totally stick. Sometimes you gotta use your hands when you're cooking / baking. All right, so then, I haven't really done this before, but you can try to make a nice pretty like little pattern, moving around, layering it up. Just kind of going in a spiral. If these potatoes were too thick, they just wouldn't lay in place here. Having thin sliced potatoes is the secret. See, I'm getting there. You could try to be really super Martha Stewart perfect about it, but I'm going more for utility. I'm gonna continue around and up the sides of the pan. They're not all the same size, so you know, you may have to work with what you've got, but I'm trying to keep similar sized ones so that it stays pretty even. But at the end, I'm probably gonna have to use some of the smaller ones once we get to the top edges. It's kind of fun. I don't think it's gonna win any prizes for beauty, but I think it looks kind of cool. And so I'm just gonna put it in the oven, 400 degrees. I'm gonna leave it in there for about 15 minutes and then see how it's doing, and it might need to go longer. So that's where I'm gonna start. And in the meantime, while that crust is baking, I can get the rest of my ingredients ready. I'm going to steam this broccoli. I'm gonna chop it really small, but I think I'm gonna steam it first. I'll do something with these leftover potato bits. I did use most of the 2 potatoes. So I'm just gonna trim this and cut it into a couple smaller pieces. Sometimes I like to take the skin off of the stem so that it's not quite as tough. I know there's a lot of fiber in the skin. If you can peel it off easily, I'll do it. I don't like to spend hours. And then honestly, I'm just gonna use the same bowl that I put my potatoes in to mix the custard for this quiche, which is the egg part. So I'm using 4 eggs here. I think it's about 1 egg to about 1/3 of a cup of milk. So that I'm gonna use about 1 cup and 1/3 of milk with this. I'm gonna whisk my eggs. Everything is gonna need to be seasoned here as well. I'm probably just gonna focus on salt and pepper, but there are definitely other flavors you could add. Things like garlic. You could use fresh herbs like basil or rosemary. If you wanted to use like a nice mixed herb blend that goes with your vegetable and goes with your cheese, I highly recommend finding ways to season this. I'll probably sprinkle some paprika over the top of the quiche to bake with it. And then I'm gonna add about 1 cup and 1/3 of milk. And again, as I mentioned, me using unsweetened almond milk. And then adding salt and pepper to taste. But the thing is, you don't want to taste raw eggs before you bake them. So it's a little more difficult to know exactly how much you need. I'm gonna just do like a couple dashes of salt. I will probably season the broccoli before I put it in so that I don't come up with a bland quiche at the end of this. Because that's frustrating once you bake it. If all of a sudden there's no flavor, it's hard to put it in after it's all baked and cooked. And my broccoli's ready to, my water's boiling, my broccoli to steam. Some vegetables you might be able to put into a quiche uncooked. Perhaps mushrooms or like something like spinach or a fresh herb, you certainly could put into a quiche and it would just bake in the oven. I really feel like the broccoli needs to be steamed or it's gonna come out tough. A quiche is nice and soft and creamy. You don't want a vegetable that's then kind of crunchy inside of there. And then I'm gonna grate my cheese. I'm probably gonna use about 4 ounces of cheese. This is gonna end up being about 4 servings, so about 1 ounce of cheese in a serving is appropriate for a serving size, and that would be about 1 egg, 1 ounce of cheese, half a potato per serving. Even though things like cheese and eggs are higher in saturated fat, if you're using an appropriate portion size, it's okay to do something like that. They are both also good sources of protein. I think this was about 1/2 pound when I bought it. I've already used some of this cheese, so I'm gonna grate most of the rest of it, but I'm not measuring precisely. Okay. The cheese isn't gonna mix in with the eggs. That's actually gonna go on the bottom, right on the crust. Because it is high in fat, it can actually create a little bit of a barrier between your crust and then your egg dish, but it will still flavor the whole thing. And then after the cheese, I'll put in the broccoli and then pour the egg custard over the top. We're gonna give the broccoli a little bit more time to steam, and the crust needs to keep baking for its time. And then once those things are done, we can really just put everything together. Broccoli's done, so I'm gonna chop it up nice and small. Of course, you could use vegetables other than broccoli. This is what I had today and what I wanted to use. I like making quiches with sauteed onions and peppers. I like mushroom quiche, asparagus, zucchini. These things are all great ingredients for a quiche. So don't limit yourself. If you don't have it fresh, you could use frozen broccoli, and that would work in here as well. I think it's done. I let this go about 20 minutes and the potatoes have gotten soft. They will obviously continue to cook while the quiche cooks too. I'm gonna turn the oven down to about 375. And we just add in these other ingredients. Eggs used to get bad press for being high in cholesterol. More recently, it's been a little bit debunked that we shouldn't have cholesterol in our diet. So we don't have to not eat eggs because they have cholesterol, but eggs also do have saturated fat in them. So it ends up being the same foods that we're still trying to be careful of. We're just more concerned now about the saturated fat than the cholesterol. I'm gonna add in, actually, I wanted to season these. So I just wanna make sure that my ingredients aren't gonna taste bland. So I'm gonna add, again, just a very small amount of oil to this broccoli, a little salt, a little pepper, and you could even add something like balsamic vinegar or lemon or something that would really brighten up. I'm almost out. That cheese is already melting right into the crust because the crust is hot. This is vegetarian, right? So I'm not using any meat. If you are a meat eater, same method applies. If you wanted to add something like that in here, you could. I don't eat meat, but because I know I've got eggs, I've got cheese, like I feel like that's probably enough for most people in terms of animal products for a meal, but I'm not your boss. And then the custard goes on top. I'm excited to see how this all turns out. I make recipes, but then I never make them exactly the same way twice, so I'm always interested to see how this version ends up. And we want to bake this until the custard starts to set, which is going to be about probably 35 to 45 minutes, but I'm always like, keep an eye on it because your oven might vary from mine. You never know exactly. Don't leave anything behind. Use a spatula. I'm gonna add a little paprika over the top, mostly just because it's pretty. Oh, that's a lot. Adds a little extra color, and this is smoked paprika, so it actually might add a nice flavor too. All right, and then this is going in the oven. To be continued. I think it's done. So out of the oven it comes, and well, you know what? It actually...
Dum, dum, dum.
Yeah. If it's really still watery in the middle, it needs more time.
Dum, 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 dum.
What's going on?
Dum, 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 pie!
Yeah, it's not done yet.
It's Joe Pie Shark.
Okay. Wow.
Bum, bum, bum.
Don't eat my pie, it's not done yet.
It's too hot.
Yeah, it's still a little liquidy.
I'll come back later.
Okay, sounds good.
Bum, bum, bum,
What do you think of
bum,
the pie
bum,
with the
bum,
potato
bum.
crust?
It looks good.
Looks cool,
Hope
huh?
it tastes good.
So we're gonna wait till it sets a little bit, and then actually before you cut it, you have to let it sit for a little while so it actually stays firm.
And if you watch it while it does these things, it happens faster.
Okay. Hang in there. All right, it's pie time. The quiche, the pie is done and ready to eat.
Dum, dum, dum.
Oh no.
Dum, 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 dum.
Oh no. Pie shark? Would you like some pie?
Oh, yes.
That's how you can appease the pie shark. Just give the pie shark pie.
What else do you think a pie shark could possibly want?
Well, I guess I'm not entirely well versed in the pie shark
It's a YouTube
way
special
of
on it.
being.
Yeah.
Is there now?
There's a wide variety of pie
I'm
sharks
pretty
out
sure
there.
this is it. This is the YouTube special on pie sharks. So maybe you should tell us a little bit more about
You might be
them.
right, but you know, they're an endangered group.
Why? Why are they endangered?
There's never enough pies for a pie shark.
Are there natural predators of pie sharks? Do they have a
Other
natural
things that
enemy?
eat pie. So I guess there's competitors.
I
So we have a
see.
soggy bottom.
Oh, I don't know. We don't want soggy bottom. I'm serving this with just some sliced tomatoes.
Oh, that's
Hey,
good.
it came out really well.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you could make smaller pieces if you were having more things in your meal. Like, you know, this could be just like a component of a meal
But
too.
why? It's pie.
It's pie! Here you go.
Okay.
Let's give it a taste.
Bum, 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 bum,
Let's
bum,
see what
bum,
it's
bum.
like. It's set.
It's good.
It's pretty good.
Mhm.
Probably could have added more salt to it. It baked for about 45 minutes and that got it enough set. It's nice. It's like just a nice way to eat. And got potatoes and eggs and broccoli and cheese. That's basically what this meal is. But it's just kind of a nice way to pull them all together.
And it's pie.
Yeah. And it's leftovers. We've got some for breakfast or another meal.
If you can keep it out of your own pie shark's hands,
Yes.
good luck with that.
All right. Yay. Thanks for joining. So I'm going to be eating quiche pie this week, and
No, I'll eat
Joe
some.
is going to be sitting on his thumb.
Oh, wow. This needs a PG rating. This.
I don't know what Joe's gonna eat. I am.
She's starving the Joe. I don't know
no.
why.
Oh, I'm not.
I will have to eat the air. Poor sad Joe is stuck with his derriere.
Okay. All right.
Some of this may be edited.
Let's hope.
pie.